Welcome to the new Teacher Talk podcast.
We are helping you find your passion,
Learn your craft,
and share your successes.
Welcome, everybody.
How's it going, Pablo?
It is going good, Wes. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well.
He's laughing.
Doing well.
Hey guys, we are back. We've been gone for a little bit, and it's the end of the year. Things have been a little busy, but we're back. No excuses, and we love doing this. And that's a message for the folks.
I was just laughing because it's been pouring rain the last couple days, and it's so unusual in Southern California. And but we're here recording in spite of the weather for you. We do it for the people.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
But we do want to remind you, we thank you for tuning in, and just go to iTunes and visit and give us a review, leave 5-star rating, and give some comments, give some words, give some feedback. We love that, and we treasure that, and we value that.
Yes, we do.
All right. So today, what's on the docket?
Oh, today we have...
That's your saying.
Yeah, well, you utilized it. It's okay.
All right.
So today we have part 2 of Insights from a Future Teacher.
Great.
So we have two teachers, Ileana and Katherine.
Teachers or student teachers?
Student teachers who attend Cal State Fullerton. But that's,
Shout out.
We don't have anything,
to the Titans.
If we don't have anything else to say, then we'll just have them introduce themselves.
Oh, yeah, we can have them
for that?
introduce themselves.
I don't need to say any more.
We're ready to go.
Let's do this.
All right, well, you'll see who it is.
And my name's Ileana Geary. I also went to California State University of Fullerton. For my undergrad, I went for my Bachelor's of Art degree in Liberal Studies. And I'm currently there now for my graduate school in the multiple subject teaching credential program for elementary teachers as well.
And here's our next guest.
Hi, my name is Katherine Bremer, and I went to California State University Fullerton for my undergrad as well as the graduate program that I'm in right now. I graduated back in 2016 with my Bachelor's of Science degree in Child and Adolescent Development, and right now I'm attending the Cal State Fullerton Multiple Subject Teaching Credential program, that's a mouthful, for future elementary school teachers.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you, Ileana and Katherine.
The first question we asked them is, what, Pablo?
What most interested you about pursuing a teaching credential?
And here's what they had to say.
Okay, so this next question deals with what interested us the most about pursuing teaching credentials. And I think this is really interesting because Ileana and I actually coincidentally were both in the nursing track before.
Yeah, right.
And then we actually made a switch over to teaching. So for me, I made that switch from nursing to teaching because I wanted the social aspect much more than I wanted the medical aspect of working with children. So I was actually looking to be a pediatrician. And I think, Ileana, you wanted...
I was actually looking into being like an OBGYN, or I actually really like geriatrics too. But I feel like I was on the nursing track, and then kind of like you, like I didn't feel like I wanted to do the medical aspect of it. I wanted to do more of like the patient care, or like that relationship with the patient. But yeah, like nursing wise, I feel like I made the right choice switching to being teaching and like doing the credential program.
Yeah, I feel really similar. I wasn't so much interested in the medical aspect. I was interested in like helping out people and working with families and working with the kids, which is why I jumped into multiple subject, because it's in an elementary school setting. And something that I love about the multiple subject, and I feel like a lot of people like this, is that when you have a multiple subject credential, it's very flexible. So yes, you can teach all the way from TK, which is transitional kindergarten, to 6, but you have the flexibility. If you change your mind and you decide primary is not for you, you're not locked into it. You can take a single subject certification test and teach at a junior high level if you choose to do that.
Right, and like I liked a little bit of that too, because even if you stick with multiple subject credential, you can jump into you teach a little bit of every subject every day to your students. So you get to engage in a lot of lessons that deal with spelling, math, science, social studies, and even art and PE too sometimes. And I feel like that it makes your day go a lot faster, and like you get to connect with kids in different subjects that they excel in.
Exactly. Like probably the most common question I get when I tell people like, oh, I'm a teacher, I'm in school to be a teacher. They're like, oh, what subject? And I never know how to answer that because I'm like, all of them.
Every subject?
Every subject. I teach a little bit of everything with multiple subjects.
Yeah. I think that's like our main reasons to why we wanted to pursue the teaching credential program. We're both in 6th grade right now, in the Fullerton area, and we were both actually super nervous about it, and it's actually been one of the best experiences that we've had.
Yeah, most of my experience before this was in TK or kinder or 1st grade. So when I got assigned to 6th, I was like, oh, that's really different. But I like it. It's been really rewarding so far. I'm glad that I pursued the teaching credential.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, thanks, Katherine and Ileana. I really appreciate the info you provided for us, and
I was taking notes. I was like, ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you talked about was going into the medical field, and yours truly here was
true.
thinking about going into the medical field. My degree is actually in kinesiology. Wanted to be a physician assistant. Things went a little differently than that, and I'm glad they did. But yeah, you'll find your path. Certainly, we certainly appreciate you choosing the field of education and becoming a teacher. And the other side of things, because these are two things that relate to me, not necessarily to you. And that is, the other is a multiple subject credential.
Yeah.
Woot woot. Good job, ladies.
Yeah.
Certainly appreciate that. And there's nothing against single subject teachers, because actually I was a multiple subject teacher teaching in essentially a middle school program. So that is another thing that you can consider if you're teaching a core classroom or a core set of kids, which just means really two sets of kids, or a set of kids going to two of your classes. Like if you teach math and science, then you have to have the same kids in the math and then come to your science class. They don't have to be consecutive, but they have to see you twice in that day. But anyways, no, I certainly appreciate the information you guys gave, and it's valuable to feel. I think it's valuable information for everybody who's listening, who's getting into the field of education, on how you're going to choose which way you're going to go, multiple subject or single subject.
I was wondering, did you agree with that kind of that idea about it's a more flexible approach to go multiple subject, because then you can just get that single subject certification to teach up through junior high?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you have more width, if you will, from TK to at least 6, that you have that wiggle room. But if you do want to venture off into 6 through 12, and depending on your specialty, that you have to. I mean, it's not easy, but if you want to go get your math single subject credential authorization, that's there and it's available, and vice versa, it's probably not as easy to go and go the other way once you were in single subject. Yeah. I know people have done it, but it seems to be more prevalent going from multiple subject to single subject.
And what did you think about the quote, the multiple subject, you get to teach a bit of everything, or that? So there was that take on it as being kind of a more flexible choice in terms of the things you get exposure to in terms of a teacher. Do you agree with that? Or
I do. The reason I agree is you have opportunity. What you'll find, the reality is, it's going to be heavily focused on language arts and math. Traditionally, you don't have to have that specifically. Like, you can run all of your language arts through, let's say, history and science if you wish. Most programs aren't like that. You have a specific book or a specific vendor that you're going to go through, and you're actually going to have all your curriculum and materials through them. However, it can be up to you to be able to be flexible to, if you really enjoy science, that you can actually kind of mix that in and filter that in, or filter the reading through a science, if you will, or through a social studies, or whatever you want. And so in that way, it is a little bit more flexible. However, if you're teaching, let's say, physics in high school, or let's just say a physics class in junior high, it's going to be pretty straightforward. That's the focus. And so I think there's a little bit less flexibility, but yet you can get creative on how you deliver. But I think there's just more opportunity for it to be more flexible in
Yeah.
elementary. That's my take, anyways, from what I've seen across the board. Because I taught the majority of my teaching in education was in middle school, and so although I was on a K-8 campus, I was also in a middle school arena as well, where it was just 6, 7, and 8. So I don't know. I had kind of the best of both worlds, and I think that's a spot that you can live in and kind of do both. Where I was just focused on math and science, for example.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now that you got my wheels turning, and I was thinking about initially a single subject English teacher.
Yeah,
if
and that's
I
what
liked,
you were. I mean, that's what you did.
So if I liked science, also I could bring in articles to read about science. We could have Socratic seminars about topics like that.
Yeah.
It would be harder to get math involved as an English teacher, but then another reversal I thought about, what if I was a science teacher and I loved literature? We could read, some of Isaac Asimov's short stories here and there just to have like another view on science from a science fiction perspective. But I think those are it's almost, if you have a creative lens on whatever you choose, I think you can kind of make the best of either path, but definitely in multiple subject, you're supposed to be touching on those. You're not supposed to be neglecting, social science, or I've never been there, but I think you're supposed to be.
It does happen.
There's required minutes for like PE.
Yes. Well, yes.
But that's the PE teacher.
But there's not that many of them.
Yeah.
Like, it might be twice a week.
Yeah.
Some schools, of course, every day.
Yeah.
It's not,
okay.
It's not balanced, though.
No,
it's not
enough
balanced.
said. I think Paulo's looking at me like, it happens that people go
that's the
ELA
reality.
math. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reality.
And there's pressure for test scores for that reason.
And some of the things that I've talked to a lot of high school teachers, and maybe you can, tell me if I'm wrong here, and or just a lot of teachers in general. But if you are teaching, let's say, English, or you have a physics class, you're very possessive. It's kind of like you're in your own wheelhouse. You don't necessarily look outside. I mean, you might, obviously, if you're a dynamic teacher and you want to like just improve your classroom and just make it the best classroom, that you can make it, that you're going to try to be diverse in every which way of teaching. But if you're teaching physics itself, you're very possessive of just, this is my class. I have 6 periods of it. That's it. I'm not necessarily collaborating with anybody else. You could say the same for a 4th grade teacher, let's say, but typically they're going to be on a team and they're going to work together. That doesn't mean that there's not a team of physics teachers at a high school, let's say. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's not, but I don't know, maybe jump in there and tell me if I'm right or wrong in terms of the English department. When you were in it, do you recall doing a lot of collaborative work with?
Sure. Yeah. So,
or your class is very different.
So there are like let's say a high school where I taught with like 3,000 students, and there would be like 10 ninth grade teachers.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of collaboration there. You might have a one-off course like speech and debate, and there's no one to collaborate with. You're it.
I see.
But another thought I was just thinking about, in terms of the pressure, like in terms of PLCs, like grade levels at an elementary school, you have kind of a pretty tightly focused microscope on these 30 kids. Are they learning to read, let's say, or the chosen standards for your school? You're talking about them with your grade level team. Well, in secondary, high school, let's say you have 150, 180 students. There's going to be like benchmarks that you look at how you're doing, but there's not going to be the same type of focus on an individual student's achievement. So that's a difference. I think there's a different type of pressures in both.
Okay.
Just with the high school, seeing so many students, the scrutiny is different. And I think I would think there's more pressure at the elementary grade level because you only have X number of students, and they're gonna. Well, you were single subject or single?
No, I was multiple
self-contained. That's what I
wasn't though. No.
Oh, you weren't.
I was
okay.
a multiple subject teacher, but teaching in a middle school environment.
So you saw.
So I taught.
Yeah.
but I had core classes, so I had two periods, let's say, of the same students.
Yeah.
And sometimes consecutively, sometimes they came to first and then they came to sixth grade.
I don't know if we got off topic there,
No, but it's
the benefits and
let's bring it right back to the flexibility part, though, in terms of multiple subject. That piece, there's flexibility in this where here's where you do not have flexibility in high school. You have 50 minutes. You're not going to say, they're leaving. They're going to the next class.
Yeah. You can't say
middle school teacher, let's spend another 20 minutes on this because we didn't quite get this, or what, you just want to go deeper,
or
whatever.
let's have the group that we didn't get enough mastery on this is come see me after lunch while everybody else is silent reading. I mean, in high school, they're gone with the bell, and you won't see them again until tomorrow. It's true.
But the schedule's jam packed, but you do have the opportunity.
Yeah, there's flexibility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well said. Well said. What's our next question?
Question number 2. What has been the most satisfying experience of your teaching credential program, and what has been challenging or the most difficult part of the program thus far?
And here's what they said.
When Katherine and I were talking about and discussing like the most satisfying experience that we've had, we both said kids, like to start it all off. But I specifically said that student teaching and like the whole building a bond and like relationship with the kids has been like one of the most like rewarding experiences. And at first, like I said, I was so nervous to have 6th graders and I thought it would be so impossible, but it's actually one of like my best and most satisfying experiences that I've had. I've been able to like connect and really get to know my students and get them engaged in learning. And I have that relationship where it's like a friend-teacher relationship where they can come to me with anything that they need. And I don't know, is that like with you, Katherine?
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to like 6th grade as much as I like it. I think that by far the most satisfying experience of this program is the kids. They are so excited to see me in the morning, and during the first part of this program, you only come twice a week. So whenever it was one of the days that I would come and they would see me walking on campus, they would just shout out my name, Mrs. Bremer. Like, it's so rewarding, and I feel so appreciated.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just love being in the classroom. We have, my mentor teacher and I have decorated our classroom with all the like art we've made, and we've put up their assignments all over the place. And it's a really fun atmosphere to be in, and I really like being in there and being surrounded by the kids. And they give you presents, like they write you little notes, like it's so sweet. And the kids by far are the most rewarding part.
Yeah, and now that we're there like every day, Monday through Friday, I like feel like a real teacher. Like I feel like they look at me differently, and they look at me as like another teacher to have there to support them. And not only that, but I get to lesson plan now, and that helps me be in front of the class and actually teach and know what it's like to experience, first time lessons or trial and error with lessons.
Exactly. And like we get to make all our mistakes now because we're supported by our mentor teachers. And I was really worried that the kids wouldn't look at me as a teacher. I was really worried they would look at me as like a helper or like some kids, I was so worried they would ask, like, whose mom are you? Like, I am a teacher, too, and I haven't got that at all. Like, to my students, I am a teacher. They have 2 teachers, and I am one of them. I'm not a student teacher. I'm not a helper, and that is amazing. That's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen both of us grow so much as an educator because we're actually experiencing the classroom. We're actually doing what teachers do every day, taking attendance, taking who's doing lunch at school, who has lunch that they brought from home, or
taking home their projects in the trunk of my car to grade them.
Right.
We're doing everything that our mentor teachers are doing.
Yeah, like not only are they asking our mentor teacher questions about the subjects, but they're actually coming up to us for help with math or, the instructions for a project. I feel like they really take into account or take advantage of having 2 teachers because that's why we're here, is to help them.
It kind of makes me nervous for when we're not in the program and we're on our own.
I know.
But that's also exciting. It'll be challenging, but exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sixth grade is my jam. So Ileana and Catherine, you guys are in the right. Hopefully you guys become sixth graders, and that's what, or sixth. You don't want to be sixth graders. Sorry, sixth grade teachers. But I taught sixth grade for a long time. Love that grade level. But I'm sure you'll be great wherever you go. But one of the things that struck me is I can never, it never gets old when a student calls your name from afar, like, Mrs. Bremer. That must feel super good. It still feels good even as district personnel now going to schools, and you visit classrooms, and you visited some classrooms over and over, and they know your name. So Mr. Diaz, love that. That never gets old. But one of the things you guys mentioned was that you get to make all your mistakes now. True, but believe me, you will keep making mistakes in your teaching experience, your teaching journey. So, and that's okay. And like we said, you learn from those mistakes, and you want to be okay enough with yourself that you do things that test yourself a little bit, that it's okay to make those mistakes. So take a few risks in terms of a different teaching style that you were thinking of, but didn't want to do that because you were thinking, hey, somebody might say something, or it might feel just wrong in terms of delivering content in a certain way. Try it, whether it's technology or what have you. If it's something new and you want to try it, feel free to do that. I really think to grow, you're going to need to make mistakes, especially when you take over the classroom and it's just you and 30 to 40 kids in your class.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that stood out to me is kind of this concept of the more you're there, the more days, like they were saying, they're spending more days there, the better it gets. And so this idea of familiarity and like being more in a comfort zone definitely is true. But along the lines with that, making mistakes, and you're always going to make them. So it just put me in this mindset of like, how do you build that familiarity, but then stay open to being reflective about mistakes? So it just reminded me of something we talk about from time to time, is the value of journaling. And so as you're on this student-teacher journey is write down these things and reflect on them, so that you can a year or 2 years later look back and go, oh my gosh, I had this mindset, and what a journey it's been from there. Or, oh, there's a valuable gem of a lesson I learned in student teaching, and a journal will expose that to you where you go, I forgot that. Yeah, the more time you put in, like this lesson, the more time you invest, the better it can be. And sometimes you get a rough class, and you're like, it's, the semester, it's been half the year, but you just remember that lesson. Just stick it out, invest more time. It'll turn a corner. It'll get better. And they didn't talk about this, and maybe they will, because they're going to talk about challenges next. But I just reminisced about when they said, when students are calling your name out, it's such a good feeling. It's so interesting that sometimes the students who drove you the craziest, and you thought that was a struggle to get through the year, they come back the next year and they're like, you were my favorite teacher. And you're like, really? I did not know that. But then they love to shout out your name, as years go by and they see you around campus. So that's just one of those things you don't know till later, is that impact that you have on students.
Yeah. And they mentioned bond. The more that they show up, they feel like they have more of a bond with the students, and it's vice versa. I feel like they have a bond with you. And you talked about familiarity, that when you become more familiar with the day in, day out efforts and struggles of every student, that they are going to become more familiar to you, and you're going to build that bond. And after, 180 some odd days in the classroom with these kids, you become a unit, and then, they have to leave the nest, so to speak, and move on to that next level. But that's a good day. It's a sad day. And then you do it all again. It's a new crop of kids. It's starting over. And that's the one thing in teaching, and as a teacher, you're not necessarily starting over, but you've gone through every year is not going to be the same. And I think you need to be reflective of that at the end of the year and not treat kids the new crop of kids as if they were the old crop.
Yeah.
You got to take them for what they're worth, because we've talked about this on this podcast, that every student is unique. They're an individual, and together it's a total new unit of a group of students.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, we're going to let him finish the rest of that question, which is
about challenge. What are the challenges or difficult parts so far of the program?
Yeah. So here's what they had to say.
And so for what's challenging for us, I would say for me, the most challenging part would be like knowing how to be organized and create all these engaging lesson plans. That is like trial and error right there. You want to make sure that you do the right things, but at the same time it's okay to mess up, and you figure out what like works with your students. And what about for you, Katherine? Like, what's your most challenging?
I definitely agree. I think it's really challenging because not only are we student teaching, but for a while we were also in the program. So we were also doing homework. So the lesson plans that we were creating for our students, we were actually also being graded on and turning them in as projects.
Yeah.
So we couldn't just kind of do whatever we wanted. There were so many things that we had to include in them. They had to be engaging. They had to have a certain level of scaffolding for all types of learners. So it was really challenging learning how to structure and set up a lesson plan. And then probably the most frustrating for me is sometimes you put in so much work and you make a lesson plan and you feel like it's going to go wonderfully, and then you teach it and it just does not go over the way that you wanted it to.
Right. And that's where we learn like flexibility and improvising.
Definitely improvising.
I also felt like, we do have a ton of lesson planning, but it's important to know that you need to put your students as a priority and not get so overwhelmed with everything, and just take it day by day and understand that, just like your kids are learning, so are you, especially as a first-time teacher. And that's why your mentor teacher's there to like step in when you need their help.
Yeah, it's overwhelming for the students, and it's overwhelming for us. And so we need to put them first and their learning first, which is why I really like student teaching. Back when we were only coming twice a week, I feel like my brain was half in the mentor program and half student teaching. There's a million acronyms they want us to know as teachers. We have RECA, BITSA, CalTPA. What else do we have?
MCOP, CSET, CBEST.
FIX, CALP. There's so many, like, they throw these acronyms at you and they expect you to remember them. And eventually you do. And eventually you start using them
to yourself.
Yeah, you'll just be talking to your friends and be like, oh, I use BIX in the classroom today.
Yeah. We were talking about earlier how challenging it is that it's going to be like for us to leave our students, and like,
yeah,
we only get 5 full weeks with them of coming Monday through Friday, and you build that relationship with them, and they expect you to be there until the end of the school year. And I already had one student ask me, like, you're going to come the last day of school, right? Like, you'll come back. And I know you said you had someone ask you.
Yeah, they are begging me to come on their 6th grade science camp with them.
And their graduation, right?
And the graduation and the field trips. And when they found out that I was leaving and I wasn't staying the full school year, they were like, well, why? You're our teacher. And like, I feel the same way. I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah. But in another like positive aspect of that, like, we'll get to meet a whole new group of students and build that connection with them and hopefully impact their lives in a positive way.
Exactly. Like, being a teacher, you don't do it for yourself, you do it for the kids. And so being able to experience a whole new classroom will be able to impact a whole new set of kids. So I feel like it's best overall.
Yeah, and it'll make us better teachers too in the future.
Definitely.
All right. Ileana and Katherine, thank you for sharing those challenges. One thing that I forget who said it, but it was mentioned right away, and I don't think they went back to it, but was organization. I think that's definitely something that comes through time. You like building kind of a system of how you look at I know the university has submit this lesson and submit this unit, and they talked about that was actually one of the challenges of doing homework, but then also the requirements for the homework were not exactly matched to what you would do naturally for like a real classroom experience. They're like, insert this, and how would you do this? Some of the things you would do naturally, like they said, how do you plan for engagement? So you have to have that, but documenting it, I think, is somewhat awkward. But anyways, organization, I just think you learn it over time, and it's almost like how you look at a year. There's an organizational plan that comes with that, is materials, and I just think I just go to Google Drive as like I kind of have my year in Google Drive, and like I can kind of close it up and say that was last year and I'm going to start over, or I can pull things from there. They go at a certain time of year, like what did we do last year, and you can use it or not. But it's Google Drive for me it's almost like a calendar when I look back, or a diary or an archive. So that's just me. Other thoughts, Pablo, about challenges?
Just one thing. You guys mentioned kind of leaving the class and the kids asking you, hey, when are you coming back, and if you're going to be at this event or that event. And I think that it's good that you're thinking that way, in terms of like, yeah, I'd love to be there, but maybe you will to one of them or not. But teaching is a very can be in a very emotional part of the year. It's very psychological, and again, you've got 30 to 40 different bodies and brains happening, and everybody doesn't think the same. And I just want you to know that, and this is for, again, all new teachers or prospective teachers, that you got to keep that in mind. You got to keep the heart and emotion in it, because if you don't, it becomes a very, I don't know, mundane job. It's filled, and not all the emotions are good ones, right? There's angry students, there's angry parents, there's angry administration, but there's also the flip side of that. There's happy students and happy parents and happy administration. So you're going to run the gamut on emotion and the psychology behind it. As long as and you guys sound like you have great heads on your shoulders, and from what I'm hearing, you just have to be flexible and things of that nature. And you see the other side of it, that you're going to gain experience with a new set or core of students. And that's important to keep in mind as you go through your years of teaching. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's super important. And then I think as a young teacher, a lot of times you don't think about it. You just, because there's going to be a lot of moving parts. Like you said, there's a lot of acronyms. You don't learn them, or you don't memorize them. You'll learn them over time. Don't worry about those things. But there's a lot of other things that are going to be moving fast at you. And so I think just keeping the student number one and figuring out how to give the best possible effort to each individual child on a daily basis, you're going to do just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple other things that stuck out is how to, somebody said, use a phrase, how to create what works. Like that's always kind of a journey, is like you prepare something and does it work or not? And then there was this other, I kind of, in my notes, I kind of called it lesson failures, is you prepare something and then it just flops. And that's when they mentioned flexibility and improvisation. And it just immediately struck a chord with me about, is how do you track what works? And I remembered, I mean, you could do the journaling thing like I mentioned earlier, but I remembered I used to have a desk calendar, and on my desk calendar was kind of a shorthand version of, so it's like a month at a glance. And I would write in the desk calendar, we did this project and it kind of went over these number of days. And on this day we did Socratic seminar or lecture or this or that. But I had a rating system. I would put like, plus, check, minus, and stars, and I would circle them so that over a month I could look back at my desk and go, wow, that bombed, that was a success, that was a success. So I had kind of like almost like a Yelp review, like a self-imposed Yelp review of my month at a glance. So it kind of helped me keep track of what was working with my students. So yeah, that's just an idea that came back, is not just keeping organized in terms of creating the materials, but also how do you keep track of things that work. A lot of times it's just you remember something as being awesome, and from that emotion of that experience, you remember it into the next year. But we do so many different things, and it's day after day after day. I just really advocate some sort of written record where you're capturing those impressions.
That's good advice. All right, so question number 3, put your student hat on. What would you say to your future teacher self to remember about teaching students and your first classroom?
All right, here we go.
So if I could like jump in the future and talk to myself as a future teacher, I would basically say make things memorable. Students only remember either the fun stuff or the scary stuff, the projects, the experiences. If you ask anybody out there, what do you remember most about being in elementary school? No one out there is going to say, oh, well, we took these tests or we took notes one day and it was great. They remember the hands-on experiences, the experiments that they did in science class, watching videos, dancing. Like I still remember doing square dancing in elementary school. I remember making a sock puppet and the grass grew as its hair, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I remember the art I made. I still have some of the art I made in elementary school.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Yeah, and it's like if you don't make it memorable in some way, the students aren't going to remember it. And so for me, what I would tell myself is make sure when you're lesson planning, don't get so caught up in the logistics of it all and forget the fun, because these are kids. And kids learn best in an environment where they feel fostered, or it fosters creativity, and where they feel support, like they can be themselves and they're not just writing notes every single day, copying every single day. Kids are creative beings, and I feel like you need to nurture that.
Oh, 1,000%. I feel like for me, myself, I think I would tell my future self to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, as our professors have told us in the beginning of the program. I've really taken this quote to heart, because there are so many times where I've been uncomfortable, like in student teaching or doing lesson plans, and I've just realized like that has made me grow as a person, and I've been able to like see that. And another thing would be breathe. Like it's so overwhelming, right, Catherine?
Definitely.
Like you have so many assignments, you have so many projects, and on top of that, you have 28 to 30 students you're taking care of, and you want to make sure that you're prepared the previous day before you go in to teach them, because you know you're teaching and impacting these kids' lives, and you want to make sure you yourself are confident, because if you're not confident, how are the kids supposed to be like able to learn from you or even believe in you? So I think that's a lot that I would say to myself.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Yeah, I think we both agreed on like being okay with making mistakes and learning from them.
Oh, because you're gonna make mistakes. I made a mistake the other day in class. We were making art creatures and then writing poetry about them, and I made the mistake of saying that I would put on the eyes individually on all their creatures. What I failed to take into account is we have 26 students in my class, and we had 2 of your kids in my class that day too. So there was 29 kids, and each creature had 2 eyeballs. So this ended up taking so long, and if I could just go back and shake myself and be like,
well, and you said like they all came up at the same time.
There was a line snaking around the classroom, and I was like, okay, learning experience number 1, never do things individually. When you have a class of 30 kids, like you're gonna make mistakes, and it's gonna be awkward at times and embarrassing at times and terrifying at times, but that's why we're student teaching.
Right. And like no one ever is perfect.
Exactly.
And you have to be okay with making mistakes and improvising.
All right. Yeah. So good. So good. So a couple of the words that stood out to me about looking from the student perspective, what would you say to your future teacher self to remember about teaching students? Make it memorable. I know, Pablo, I looked at you. We looked at each other like that's magical moments, making it memorable. Those are things we talk about all the time. Fun, that word stood out to me. Creativity, that stood out to me. Support and nurture. And I think that's those are good words to keep in the top of your mind about what's really gonna matter from the student perspective. What about you?
Yeah, students doing stuff. Like not just the mundane, but doing, creating.
Hands-on.
You talked about it. Like I think it was Katherine was talking about. I remember the videos, the dancing, the sock puppets, the art that you still have some of. So this is all stuff that you remember. You hold it near and dear to your heart, even if it's a memory. It's there, and those are the things you remember. It's not the formulas that they'll be there, and that's the stuff you're going to have to go through, but those aren't the things that they remember. Or how do you make those formulas memorable? And so there's a lot of different ways to do that, and those are the types of things that you need to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well, you know what? They recorded a closing, and so it wasn't one of our 3 questions we gave them, but here's what they said to wrap up.
So for any people out there that are even thinking or considering being a teacher, just do it. Like, it's such a great experience and rewarding experience, and it's a lot of hard work, but I promise you, you will not regret it. I think, like, Katherine can agree with me on this. Go ahead, Katherine. You can give them your advice.
It's worth it. My advice would be get your foot in the door. Go to an actual classroom. You can spend as much time with kids as you want. You can have kids. You can be a nanny. I was a nanny for 8 years before this, and I thought I had experience, and I did not.
Yeah.
You need to go to the classroom. If you have a niece or a nephew, ask if you can sit in on their classroom.
Yeah.
If you have kids, visit their school for the day. Go to like a pep rally or something. Go to a harvest festival or a Christmas festival at an elementary school. Just get your feet wet. And once you do, you're probably going to be hooked just like we were.
Oh, yeah. Like, and teaching can go in so many different directions. Like, even if you do the credential program and you decide not to be a teacher, you can still impact a kid's life or decide to do something totally different. But I would highly suggest that you try it and give it a try and, you know, experience the field work and actually being in a classroom and, like, feeling like a teacher, because I second guess sometimes, like, do I want to do this? And then I go into the field work now that I'm there Monday through Friday, and like 110% I want to be a teacher. I feel like even with all the pressure and the work, it is so worth it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a stressful environment, but I'm thriving.
Yeah.
I kind of like it because it's fast-paced, but so is the world.
And it's making us grow as, like, individuals, too.
Definitely. And when I was in undergrad, the thing that I was most regretful about is not being in the classroom more. Mm-hmm. And when you're in the undergrad for Cal State Fullerton, you are instructing as an aide in a classroom, and that was my favorite part of undergrad. And I was like, I want to do this more. And now with the credential program, being a student teacher, like Ileana said, I'm here Monday through Friday, loving it. Mm-hmm. The kids were so excited when they realized I was going to start coming every day.
Yeah. So I think what me and Katherine are trying to get across is our advice is to just try it and just do it and stick it out. And I promise you, it'll be the most rewarding experience.
Yes.
For you and everyone, and every one of those kids that you're coming in contact with. You will impact their lives so much, and you don't know how much they need you until you're actually there helping them.
I completely agree. I can't imagine what my classroom would be like, or what your classroom would be like if we weren't there. It would be so different.
So thanks for listening to us, guys.
Thank you.
This was Katherine and Ileana.
With insight from educators like this, the future looks bright. I just really am encouraged
I need sunglasses
and heartened to hear their insights. And you know, they're at the beginning of their journey, and they're just willing to share what their perspectives are. So thank you to them.
Yes. Thank you, Ileana. Thank you, Katherine, for taking the time. We appreciate it. We didn't struggle, but we took a little time to get this interview to us, and it was well worth the wait. So thanks a bunch, especially to Ileana for getting Katherine on board and getting this interview out to us. We certainly do appreciate it. And then 3 nuggets of information, like summarize the whole talk, would be that that I'm going to leave you with is to create a bond, to make things engaging for students, and allow kids to make stuff.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. And so they are local, and so we might pop in and get an Instagram post going with them.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool. So everybody listening, look for that on our social feed. And also we have another social shout out to Mr. Compass
on Instagram.
On Instagram, MisterCompas. And he tagged somebody else and said, hey, check these guys out. So we just want to say, Mr. Compass, thank you. And he's got a podcast himself called Tough Teacher Talk Podcast.
Ooh, get on over there. Check that out.
Yeah, so check that out. And we appreciate him and we appreciate you.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for listening. We appreciate it. And that's going to do it for today.
Peace.
Connect with us on social media at Pablo and Wes.
On Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, and all the podcast places on the web like
iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Overcast.
And remember to get your free special gift at
pabloandwes.com/gift. Yay!